Hi, Angela. How are you?
I'm doing great, Eric. Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. For those who don't know you, you're a San Francisco hairdresser who focuses on bridal hair. And I love having bridal conversations because it's kind of this corner of our industry that probably generates revenue above what most people assume. But we're going to get into that. And we don't have
Yep.
enough conversations about it.
Yeah.
We've had Lala on multiple times,
Love her.
and she's great. But I'm excited to talk to you. You're the founder of Beyond the Ponytail, which is a
Correct.
community of bridal hairdressers that offers a directory, education, an awards program, and maybe more. But why don't we start with where you're from originally and how you got into this business in the first place?
Oh my gosh, such a funny story. I this being working behind the chair, being a cosmetologist was actually my third career. So
Huh?
I started this industry at the ripe old age of 28, which
Wow.
sometimes is later in in your career path. So I was working in corporate, and I just felt like there was something else that I was supposed to be doing. I was in a very rewarding position in human resources and recruiting. So I do like to people person, people skills were there, but I felt like I don't know, I was in this like revolving wheel of like there's something else or something else. So at the time, this is a true story. This is how people come into your life for a reason and then they quickly exit. But at the time, my first marriage, I've been married now, my second marriage. My first marriage, my husband, I was explaining to him, hey, I just don't, I feel like there's something else that I should be doing. And so he said, well, why don't his mom was in the industry. Why don't you quit your job and go to beauty school? And I was like, what? And true story. I just sat with it. And for 3 nights, I had this very vivid dream of me working behind the chair and like Edward Scissorhands, like hair is
Yeah.
flying. And I never said anything. I just woke up and like, oh my God, I had that same dream again. What is going on? 3 nights in a row. And on the third day, I woke up and I said, you know what? I'm going to quit my corporate job and I'm going to beauty school.
Are
And
you serious?
I
Okay,
swear to
pause.
you,
I have to pause you right now. I apologize for pausing you. Had you ever thought about it before then? Did you
no.
have a passion for beauty and hair that, goes beyond kind of the normal getting ready in the morning?
The answer is no. I grew up in
Wow.
the 80s. Like 80s was like my high school. So I was like Aquanet, perms, and big
Teased,
pompadours. Teas, like you got
volume.
it. So like I had great hair, and I knew how to style my own and but no, I wasn't like the like go to high school stylist that did everyone's prom hair. No, nothing at all. It was literally like he suggested it and I thought about it. I had crazy dreams about it. And I literally woke up and said, I'm going to quit my corporate job and I'm going to beauty school. And so I did, went
Wow.
to beauty school. I went to a great program. And and this is, I swear it's a true story. When I landed my first salon job, we literally like, oh, we got divorced. And it wasn't because of that. It was literally like he came into my life very quickly. He redirected the direction I was going in on my career, suggested this idea. I took it. I landed my first job, and then we literally got divorced. Not
Okay.
for that reason, but for other reasons. But it was
Okay.
like, it's so incredible. And that was 23 years ago. And so I always say people come into your life for specific reasons, and it could just be like a short, like they come in, they do what they need to do, you learn what you need to learn, and then they quickly exit. And that is literally what happened. And so I do
In
have
this
to say,
case,
no
you
regrets.
you accidentally married your career consultant, and
A
as
hundred,
soon as you no longer needed him, you divorced him.
totally. And, that was 23 years ago. And I've had an amazing experience working behind the chair, working for brands. I worked with Redken in the beginning of my career, and I was on their design team. So I got to work with exceptional stylists like Sam Villa, Chris Barron, Teresa Mockler, like so just incredible experiences. And from there, continued to work behind the chair, but I was also like doing bridal. I do love styling. So, if you look at the whole process of, in an appointment, it was always like at the finish, like finishing the hair and styling is where that brought me the most joy. And so I knew that like styling was like my niche and what I love to do. And so I started doing bridal hair. So I always worked behind the chair. I still work behind the chair with a very small clientele, but I also would do weddings and bridal because I love, that whole niche of the market. And I love, styling and make people feel beautiful and a part of their really, special day. So that's how I got started with this career. But once I had a family, my daughter's 18, my son is 12. And during that time, I stopped educating and concentrated on, having my family. And then going back, I said, I still feel there's something other in this industry that I need to do. And I was focusing on building my Instagram page. Instagram started I got on Instagram like 10 years ago. And I wanted to focus on what brought me the most joy at this point in my career, which was styling and braiding and those types of, bridal. And got my work recognized, which was such an awesome feeling, like just
By
to have
whom?
your by like Sam Villa, Modern Salon, Behind the Chair, all those industry pages, feature pages that would, feature artists from around the world. And just to have that recognition was like, it made you feel good. Like, you're like, yes, somebody recognized my work. That then motivated you to continue to produce more work. And that whole emotion and feeling was so powerful for me in that moment that I thought, if I could build a feature page, and for specifically what I love, what brings me joy, which is updos, braiding, styling, and create it in a way that it gave that feeling to somebody else. If I could uplift and give that recognitions to another stylist around the world, how awesome would that be? Like for me, just to give that feeling to somebody else that their work was recognized. And I literally was like, that is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to spend the next portion of my career uplifting artists from around the world and giving them recognition for the work that they do, and giving them confidence and building that belief system in themselves. And that's what I did. I went 1000% hard on it in the very beginning, and came up with Beyond the Ponytail. That's a whole nother story of how I came up with that name. But I devoted a lot of my time of searching and posting and meeting and building community. And it's been super successful that it grew very quickly. And that first initial purpose of why I was doing it was being received that way. And I was getting, amazing messages and DMs and videos from artists from around the world on how much this meant to them. And they would always say, you have no idea how much this means to me. And I was like, yes, I do. This is why I do it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how Beyond the Ponytail got started. It was a passion project to uplift artists from around the world in a niche that didn't have a feature page, specifically for that. So I found joy looking at beautiful images all day long. And then obviously getting, beautiful responses from people around the world that this means so much to them. And I said, yes, this is what I want. And so that's how it began. And then it just really grew from there.
And when did it begin?
Beyond the Ponytail started in 2015, like the actual, I
Cool.
jumped on Instagram. got Beyond the Ponytail. I've trademarked it. I went on, YouTube and TikTok and, all those platforms and secured the name Beyond the Ponytail. And just started doing the work of looking for inspiration that was amazing and giving recognition and featuring artists from around the world. And from there, I always knew, because I dreamed big, that I would build this brand, this platform up, and eventually have a hair show, bring the community together. And, things have happened since then of, concentrating more on the bridal community, building the directory and the purpose of that directory for our bridal stylists. So, but it originated 10 years ago.
Okay. Very interesting. A big dream.
Big dream.
And it sounds like you've been able to make it happen, which is so exciting. So give us some sort of, let's see. Let me think about where to take you next. So let's talk about your bridal career, which began before Beyond the Ponytail, yeah?
Correct.
Okay, so, and you said that you're still a salon stylist. You still have a clientele, albeit maybe smaller than in the past. So how did you, for a lot of your career, maybe before you started spending a lot of time on Beyond the Ponytail, how was your career, how was your time separated? How much time did you do on bridal, and how much time did you spend in the salon?
So there was a time where I was a full-time stylist. This was before, having children and stuff like that. A full-time stylist behind the chair, super booked. Mm-hmm. And then on the weekends, I would say, once a month, I would be doing a wedding. And so I would say the most of the time I was working behind the chair, but I would get recommendations to style and to work with colleagues that were doing weddings that needed assistance. So, probably 75, 25% bridal. I never went in full force and quit my clients from behind the chair, and like much of like the community that, I'm a part of now, they are kind of in the same boat where they work part-time behind the chair, but their passion is bridal styling. And so they continue to do that until they see, okay, I'm going to move away from working behind the chair and go full-time into bridal. And then from there, they might say, now I'm going to be an independent educator, or I'm going to start a bridal team, or do this, full-time, because the money is there. You can make an exceptional career out of just doing bridal full-time. I never stepped into that role just because I think my clients would have killed me, if I would have said I'm not working with them anymore. And so I've managed to continue to work a much smaller clientele from way back when, you're talking about 15 years ago, to continue to do bridal because that what brings me joy, but on a much smaller scale.
Okay. So at this point, you would consider yourself a bridal stylist expert.
Yes.
And you've developed this community, but I want to talk a little bit more about what it's like to be a bridal stylist, because we have a lot of listeners, a vast majority of whom are hairstylists, and many of them, I would guess, certainly don't focus on weddings. Or maybe never having actually done a wedding. So can we talk about maybe the trickiest parts of being a bridal stylist that might surprise many salon hairdressers?
There's, I always say when I speak about, the bridal stylist and that as a career in this industry, it takes a special person that has a lot of patience and a lot of ability to overcome and be in control of a stressful situation. So you have your skill level. So I always say continue to get education. If you have a love for updos, most are afraid because of the skill level. They might not be able to reproduce that particular look how they want, because it does take different steps to get to that finished result. But they're also like being able to handle the pressure of working under a timeline and be able to produce those results in a very beautiful situation, but a very stressful situation. So it's somebody that has the skill level, that has the passion and love and joy of doing an updo or doing a bridal party or doing, styling, but can also know how to manage that anxiety level that they put themselves in when they accept the role of being the stylist for the bride or the bridal party in that, wedding morning environment that you step yourself into. So I believe that if you are wanting to do this, it's great to work in a team environment. So let's say you're a stylist and you have this desire. The first thing I would do is say, get as much education as you can from all of your peers and really continue to practice on, the prep, the beginning, the middle, and the end. But
the
also
technical elements.
The technical elements. You've got to be secure and confident on the technical elements. And that just comes with practice. There is no magic button that I woke up and I'm a fantastic stylist now. All of the great educators that we have in our community have put in the work and the practice, and they get results. And they are here to share all those tips. And there's plenty, a wealth of education available in person and at your fingertips if you are interested in going into this niche of the market, which many are, but they have a fear. And so you're able to overcome those fears with technical skills. But the emotional side of it, of what it takes and the mindset of what it takes to be a bridal hairstylist, that is something that you just have to experience. And I would say, going in there and doing smaller parties or going in and working with somebody that's experienced and just kind of you've got to get your feet wet and you've got to get in there and just learn how to manage those anxieties that come when something might not be going how you want it. And it's because you're on a timeline. So there's no free for all. Like, I'm going to take 3 hours to do this and, oh shit, I messed up. And now I got to start over. You're putting yourself in an environment that's very controlled by a timeline, and you really have to own that and learn those skills on the side as well as technical. And I have to say, the most successful ones, they're able to do that because I say it takes a really special stylist to be able to welcome that level of anxiety and then also overcome it. Yeah.
Timeline. The downside of something going wrong.
Yeah.
This is the big day. The client or clients, I guess, if you're doing a wedding party or whatever.
Yep.
Everybody is on edge. Everybody's nervous. Hopefully they're having some champagne or whatever to take the edge off. But of course, the bride, the main client who's paying you, is very nervous and anxious herself, and she might be a little irrational when it comes to the way that things are going.
Correct.
And so there's a lot of things that I can see all coalescing into a very high pressure situation.
But here's the beautiful thing about it. You always have a trial before you go into an environment like this. So you build the rapport with your bride. You get to know, what type of, client they are going to be. And you work out those kinks in the trial to really understand, as a professional, I always say, be the expert in the room. Go in and say, I'm the expert, here's my recommendations, and have that, great connection before the big day through consultations, through trials, through correspondences, as a professional. So when you do put yourself in that type of environment, you kind of know what you're stepping into, and you already have a roadmap of, this is what I'm going to do. And also, here's some tricks in my back pocket in case we run into hiccups. This is what I also do. And so that just comes with experience. but it also comes with, a great mentor of somebody that can share those things with you as well. So, as a freelance bridal stylist, you often feel alone because you're really just working by yourself. But what we've done with Beyond the Ponytail and Beyond the Ponytail Bridal and the community that we've built over the last 10 years is there's a wealth of community involvement and access to resources and education and questions. Like, we've got Facebook groups. I mean, there's so much out there now, 10 years later, that if I were a new bridal or a new stylist wanting to get into bridal, you're like 10 steps ahead from somebody that, 15 years ago, because now you're stepping into a ready-made community that's so kind, so welcoming, so knowledgeable. I always call them, they're pretty badass. I have full respect for the stylists in our community that do this full time. But there's a wealth of information to get you to whatever level you want to be at now, for that new stylist, or for even, somebody that's like, I want to be better. I want to run my business better. Everything is already here.
And that's all amazing. Tell us some other things that maybe the typical salon hairstylist hasn't thought about. Just thinking about it myself, it seems like a big commitment. The relationship, that you're going to have with the bridal client, it's a big commitment. You're committing to maybe a weekend if it's a remote destination. You're traveling. You're spending a lot of money. It's not just like cruising down to the salon to do a client, and if they cancel, of course it sucks, but it's not the end of the world. It's a 2-hour hole in your day and money you didn't get. But a bridal thing is a much bigger commitment, right? So I assume that there's legal contracts that you need to get, right?
Absolutely. So, doing freelance, it's funny because back when I started doing hair, you can do the numbers of when I started and how long I've been in the industry, which is over 23 years. We had the brides come to us. It was you made an appointment in a salon and the whole, party came. Nowadays, that's not the case. You've got, independent stylists that are traveling to these locations and waking up at 4 a.m. to get there by 6 because, you got to set up and everything. So absolutely, there's ways to protect yourself when you're doing this. We always recommend having a contract and with your bride, with the bridal party, and having just a very clear communication process set up on the business side of it. So, bridal stylists are creatives. The hair industry is full of creatives, but you've got to look at, do you have your website set up? What does it look like, on the back end of running your business? And so that's a lot of where you see the need for resources within the hair industry, and then stepping into going freelance for bridal is, how do you set up that bridal business on the back end so you're covered legally and financially if something were to go awry. And, the beautiful thing about it is, again, we've got so many resources of stylists that do this on a regular basis, that run multi-million-dollar bridal businesses all over the world. And there's the willingness to share these resources and experiences and success stories and failures is really probably what I'm most proud of, is, again, having that ability to say, this is something that I want to do, but I don't even know where to begin. And we're able to kind of guide them to the right direction.
As you're talking and I'm listening to what you're saying, there's so many things that can go wrong. I can't wait for the end of this episode when I can ask you for the bridal horror story part of the episode, the Bridezilla part of the episode.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't even, for something to go wrong, it doesn't need to be a Bridezilla situation. There's lots of things. She could be the best bride in the world and things could still go wrong. But anyway, I'm going to hold off on a lot of that
Okay, because I have something to
until,
say about that.
oh
It's
gosh,
not usually the bride, it's the bridesmaids that are like the
it's the
nightmare part of it. It's the
bridesmaids.
bridesmaid.
Okay, fine. Let's go ahead
Bride's
and
great.
get into it now. All right. So do tell the bridesmaids. So really, aren't the
Yes.
bridesmaids there to support their dear friend?
Well, of course, that is the purpose of, having your friends there and being a part of your special day and the bridal party. But here's where it goes a little crazy. And I've done things where, oh yeah, where if I'm the contact with the bride, she's my focus, but I'm also concerned about who's in her party. What do they look like? What are their expectations? And so what I've been trying to share, to avoid any of those mishaps with the bridal party, because it could be 2 people in the bridal party, or it could be 6 people in the bridal party, or even more. These numbers get really, big, especially in the South where they have like 10
Right.
bridesmaids.
Right.
So which is great. We love the South there. It's the gorgeous area to get married. I just came from South Carolina. Absolutely beautiful. But you have these big parties. And so the horror stories, because you've contacted and talked and had a trial with the bridesmaid, I need to know what's coming in behind that bride and what are their expectations. And so some horror stories is these bridesmaids want to be the bride. And so there's one story which I'll never forget where this bridesmaid came in and she had a ponytail of this thick. I mean, her ponytail was thick and
Angela's
gorgeous.
holding up her hands and making a circle that is
Very
probably
big.
5 inches in diameter. Okay.
She comes in and she's like, and brings a pack of extensions with her, clip-in
Oh God.
extensions. And she's like, I would like you to put in this full set of extensions. And I was like, really? And mind you, you have like maybe an hour that you've allocated for the bridesmaid, which is very generous. You really should
Yeah.
only you could do it in 45 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
where the bride's like an hour and a half.
Okay.
The bridesmaid's 45 minutes. She comes walking in with a whole head of hair and then a whole pack of clip-in extensions, and she shows me a picture that is like totally elaborate, and then a pack of extensions, and she goes, I want these clipped in. And I was like, well, you kind of, you already have enough hair. And she's like, no, I want them clipped in. And I was like, who are you? So I proceed to try to say, okay, I'll
She's
clip
trying
a
to get
couple
a
in.
free service, basically. She's like,
Well, I
I'm
mean,
going to
they're
make use of this.
temporary. They're clip-ins. She's
Yeah,
going to take
but
them
yeah.
out,
Okay.
but she literally like insisted. I asked her multiple times. And again, this is where you can like put your foot down and go, no, this is what I'm doing. But me being, the people pleaser. And I said, okay, so I kept on saying, you really don't need any more extensions because this is more work that I have to do. And, we are on a time schedule here. She was like, no, I need them all in. And I was like, oh my God, I literally wanted to stab her in the head she was driving me crazy. So we do this elaborate, beautiful side braid ponytail crazy thing with, enough hair for like 3 stylists. And it looks beautiful, but it took over an hour. And I
Oh,
was like, who are you? Like, this is not your day. You are just
yeah.
here to support your friend.
And you're not
And
even paying for this thing. Like,
correct. Like yeah. It's like you should charge. And so
you're
here's the
long.
thing.
Yeah.
Charge extra if they want clip-in extensions put in. So there's all these things where based on your experiences, you go back to your contract and you update the contract.
No
If
one show up with clip-on extensions.
you can,
It's
but
just,
you
yeah.
don't need them if you don't need them. And another
Right.
horror story is, they get in their
I'm sorry.
chair.
Can I pause because I have another thought about that horror story. So with the pre-event consultation,
Correct.
you're meeting only with the bride. You're not meeting with everybody.
No, you're just meeting with the bride. But here's what I do now is I say what my expectations are from the bride is that I need to know who's in her bridal party, what their expectations are. So I do ask for images of the looks that they want
Smart.
because I need to know, what am I stepping into? Am I doing all half up, half down? Am I doing updos? And then the great thing is sometimes you'll get an image, a picture of the bridesmaid, and then their inspo picture. So you're really going into knowing what this party looks like already. Do they have thin hair? Do they have thick hair? Do they have curly hair? And then what their expectations are on the final look. That is fantastic. And then you always reiterate that this bridal party needs to show up on time with clean, I reiterate, clean, dry hair, not greasy hair from 2 days ago, not wet hair because they just took a shower. Like there's so many things where if you don't actually put that out there to the bride to relay to the bridesmaids, you're going to get who knows what sitting down and going, oh, I want this, but it's my hair is a little, I haven't washed it in a couple days. And I was like, okay, like this is, yeah. So there's,
it's not like going to the salon.
Yes. So you definitely have dry shampoo in your kit, a must, an absolute must, because you have no idea, who's going to show up and what they're going to look like. But yeah, those are the things that you just like based on stories and horror stories and situations where you're like, ah, damn it. You then go in much more prepared on, what you're walking into with the next party. And, it's good. It's good because you're also showing that you're very invested in the whole look. You're very invested and committed to this bridal party and to go in as prepared as possible. So even, based on past experiences where it hasn't gone very well, you then just take that as like, okay, now that's something that I have to address with my next bridal party. So then I go into a much, controlled situation.
Control. That's the word. You used it early on. And I thought that was really interesting. I hadn't thought of that before, but it's so true. And the more preparation you do, the more control you're going to have, the more confidence you as the stylist are going to have in taking control. And that one example of the girl who had all the extensions, the surprise extensions, and this expectation that was unforeseen. If you had kind of covered your bases in the way that you do now, in the way that an experienced bridal stylist does, you would have a lot more confidence to say, no, this is new. You can't spring this on me. You gave me an inspo pic where you just had a ponytail or whatever. A simple updo based on your natural hair. And okay, so what's the next horror story?
Oh, I mean, they come in and there's a myth, and I don't know where this myth came from, but it's always squashed nowadays that your hair takes better curl when it's dirty. And we know in the industry that that's not true, but the consumer still lives with that myth. And so you'll have, I remember one time she came in and I was like, I'm sorry, is your hair wet? And she's like, no, I just haven't washed it. It was not wet. It was oil. And I'm sorry, you cannot curl hair that is that dirty, like pure. And she goes, oh, I haven't washed it because I know my hair doesn't, hold a curl very well. And so I left it like this. But I was like, what is happening here? So that's, again, you put yourself in a situation where you have to think on your toes. You have to think very quickly. How am I going to, correct this? What's in front of me, what's sitting in front of me. So again, dry shampoo, and then just educating them. Well, we do need it clean. So your expectation of this look, we might have, run into a couple, problems here because the hair is so dirty. So those are the things that now, like, please reiterate to your bridesmaids that this is how we expect them to show up, because you're going to get everything sitting in front of you, not from the bride because you've had a consultation, but from the bridal party that is going to push you to your utmost limit of being in control. And we've seen it all. We've seen it all. We've heard it all, and we've done it all.
So interesting. Okay, so let's talk about another big topic here, and that's pricing. How do you price yourself for these things, especially these remote destination weddings? I've had many a conversation with beauty professionals who, especially those who don't do a lot of weddings regularly. Oftentimes it's maybe the normal hairstylist of the bride, and she has trust, she has a relationship with the beauty professional, and she asks her to do the destination wedding.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, okay, I'm going to go to Mexico, for a week, and this is a vacation, so maybe I shouldn't charge anything because I'm getting a free, in air quotes, vacation. And I've heard this so many times. How does a bridal hairstylist charge properly for these things?
So for destination weddings, I've done destination weddings, and usually, even if you're going, overnight or anything at all, just, in your contract, it's over a conversation. Usually if the bride really wants you to go, she should, I believe, pay for airfare and for accommodations and also the service. Because you have to say, I'm taking time out of my normal weekend that I would make X amount of dollars, like, $1,500, $1,000, or whatever it is that you normally make per wedding. Some make more, some make less. So you have to account for that and also own that. This is what I would normally have made. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be charging that service as well. And if they're so committed to having you be a part of this as a destination, then we always say, it's up for negotiation, of course. But, airfare and accommodations and the actual fee, if they're really wanting you to go and they've got it in their budget, they should be paying for pretty much everything that you would normally make if you weren't. But then also if you're traveling, airfare and hotel. Now, if you're doing it as a friend, like I've done it where I was a friend and we all went to Mexico, and as my gift to her, I didn't charge for the actual service, but, they paid for, hotel and accommodate, and airfare because they wanted me to be there. So, it's really kind of case by case depending on the client and bride relationship, the, stylist and bride relationship. But for the most part, there are stylists that say, I only want to do destination weddings. And so that's how they market themselves as an independent stylist, focusing on destination because they want to travel. But I guarantee you they run it as a business of, if you want me to go, then this is airfare, this is hotel accommodations for the time that I'm with you, and then this is what my fee is.
Right.
But,
I mean, they have, at the end of the day, at the end of every month, they have bills to pay themselves.
Correct. Yeah.
So
and
they
even
have to
even
make
if
sure.
you're not destination, you also have a clause in your contracts of how much you get for traveling. It's $1 a mile or whatever it is. And then if you are starting before 7 a.m., you have an early morning additional fee. Or if it's too far, then for me, I don't want it. If I have a start time of 7 and you're 3 hours away, I ain't getting up that early to come set it. If you would like for me to be your stylist, I, require overnight accommodations. I'll get there the night before, but you're providing that overnight accommodation. And most of the time they're like, sure, no problem. And so they get you a room.
And then another thing I've heard is the blurring of the boundaries between, are you an attendee of the wedding or are you working at the wedding, right? The bride will say, oh, come to the party or come to this other fun thing that we're doing in advance. And sometimes that kind of impedes on the working element.
Sure.
Yeah. Have you experienced that?
Oh, I haven't. Well, I haven't necessarily experienced that, but I talk to stylists that experience that. And it's a great opportunity. If you're at a destination wedding or you're even at a wedding and they say, what you find nowadays is the brides will want a reception look or they want, they're going to go walk down the aisle, and then they run, go and hide away, and then they get a different look, they get a different dress, and they take their hair down or put their hair up, and have multiple looks throughout the day, which is really the norm. It's not just one look, one dress. It's two looks, two or three dresses, and that's great. If you want to provide that service of after the morning services are done, then you can hire me to stay on, and it's $150 an hour, or, what have you. There's an additional fee. And if the bride wants you there, the bride is going to pay it. But I would highly recommend, if that's the situation where you are asked to stay for the second look and for, the evening looks, and then, yeah, there's my day fee. On top of what I did in the morning. Absolutely.
Right. Well, hopefully all that's in the contract, and you're not asked last minute, right? I think that's where the problem occurs, is you've been asked as a friend, as an attendee of the festivities, to be at the party, and you're drinking. And then next thing you know, the bride is like, hey, can you do this or do that with my hair really quick? Right? Yes. Everything's just really quick. Can you just this or just that? Can you just take it and do this with it? And then, there you are, and you've been drinking and having fun as an attendee. And then all of a sudden she expects you to do something, that's requires some lucidity.
So here's my response to that, which I have, because I've done my cousin's hair, and of course I stayed, and of course I drank champagne, and of course I touched her hair afterwards. But here's the thing. It depends on the relationship that you have with the bride. And if you're going as an attendant and also the hairstylist and then an attendant, as a stylist, we do this because, as a bridal stylist, we do this because we have a deep-seated passion for what we do. So you can't just turn that off, and if you see a hair out of place, like, I don't care if I have 3 glasses of champagne. I'm going to be like, come over here. Let me clean you up, or let me do this, let me do that. So it's almost like innate to be available to continue to do their hair as the party goes on, because that's just what you love to do. And so I love doing that. It's almost like being on a photo shoot. You do it, but then you're constantly touching up, all day long. I think it's part of our DNA to, if we are there and your bride who / is probably a good friend of yours wants you to do something extra, I think it's just the love for what we do. At least I would be like, absolutely. So I walk with a comb in my back pocket, or a purse that has, some things in it. So I'm constantly watching my work walk around the room. And if I see anything, it's like, come over here, or let's change it up. Let's change your look. So, it's a case by case situation, but I don't think, if you are the stylist and then asked to stay because you are good friends and you have a great relationship, I don't think there is harm in continuing to touch and play with the hair, because that's what we love to do anyways. And it's your friend. So of course I'm going to do it.
If the expectations are not aligned, though, if the bride wants you to be doing that and you're not doing that, then she could get it anyway. Okay. Yes. I'm gonna say. Right.
Yeah. So just, expectations. That's what I'm saying. It's like conversation. Communication, conversation, expectations before you step into that environment are key for success on both ends.
Totally. All right. Tell us about Beyond the Ponytail. I said early on in this conversation that you guys have a directory, which I assume is kind of a pivotal part of what you're offering, because that directly goes to, marketing benefit that a bridal stylist can really take advantage of. And then you have education and you have awards. Let's start with the directory. Tell us about that.
So it was formed out of a need, because I spent hours and hours searching the globe for bridal stylists and featuring them, and creating and making these amazing relationships. I believe the consumer, who is the bride, thinks that I know every bridal stylist in the world, which
You don't?
that is not true, but I have a good idea of really great people around the world. And so I was getting DMs all the time of like, are you available to do my hair in Texas? Or do you know of a stylist in Alabama that can do my hair, or Florida, or New York, or New Jersey, Pennsylvania, you name it. I've
Yeah.
gotten people messaging me all the time. And so it was like, well, I do, but I just don't have like a Rolodex that has their information and, that kind of thing. So it was developed out of a need to provide a resource for twofolds. For one, for the consumer, so they can go directly to the directory, and it's specifically for hairstylist. We will eventually bring in the makeup artist because that's part of our bridal community. So we're expanding the directory, this year. But for now, it was solely like, that is who my community are. They're bridal hairstylists. So it's a global directory that we can send consumers to. And we also have it on Pinterest because that's where the bride lives. So anything that's on Pinterest drives the brides to the directory if they're looking for a hairstylist. And then in doing so, it's a membership, a yearly membership, very, very affordable, because I didn't want anyone to feel that, it was so much of their marketing budget. I really was more about, let's get this resource built for the consumer, and then also build a private Facebook group. So all of these members have a place to go and communicate. And then I'm able to learn and grow and support them as well, because I'm on that Facebook group every day, communicating and providing Zooms and coaching and mentoring and stuff like that. So it's been great. And it was, it's just, again, built out of necessity, but it's such a wonderful resource of me allowing myself to know those members more closely and, intimately, and then helping promote their business, but also having a resource that we can then now promote to the consumer to use. So it's been great. And, it's growing and it's something that I'm super proud of, and it's just needed. The Knot and all these other bridal directories, which are fantastic, are extremely expensive, but they encompass all of the bridal industry, which is all the vendors, the caterers, everything to have for a wedding, where ours is specifically designed just for the styling side of it.
Got it. How much is the Knot to list on there as a vendor?
It's so expensive. I mean, it's a lot, like $300, $400, $500 a month.
Oh my gosh.
It's a lot. It is.
Wow.
And there's different tiers. And so to use a directory, which is great, it's fine. It's like, it wasn't even like we're competing with any other directory just because this was a great resource for a hairstylist. But again, looking at what other stylists pay for other directories, I knew that I wanted it to make it very affordable. It's only like $99 a year. So you're looking at $8 a month to allow us to be a part of your marketing team. And then for me to like really identify it around the country and the world of, who we want to promote and who do we want to, use as resources for brides that contact us. So Amazing. It's good. It's great. Yeah.
Okay. Talk about the education. How often, what type, where?
So from Beyond the Ponytail, as that large platform and community, we then, of course, started the directory. And so I made another Instagram page called BTP Bridal, Beyond the Bridal. So it's really, really specifically all bridal. It's where we can showcase the bridal members that we have. I mean, the stylists that we have. But from there, we started doing the styling awards, but for the education, right now we are launching, it's called the Bridal Artist Connection. And so this was created out of a need for in-person networking events around the country for the bridal community. So what we've listened and heard is, we go to these hair shows and there's only a couple classes to choose from, or, we're independent entrepreneurs and we just don't feel like we have a place to come together. So I knew having in-person events coming off of the pandemic was where we wanted to step into and provide in-person events for connection. And, you know, we've all been to hair shows, and we've all been to networking events, and those are an opportunity to connect with like-minded professionals, tell success stories, share stories, educate, all those things that are so valuable for the growth of anyone's business. I think in any genre that you're talking about, you're always going to have these, you know, places where people can come together and grow and learn from. So looking at what was out there in the industry, there wasn't one specifically for bridal. And of course, you know, since that's, you know, are the community that we serve, coming out of the pandemic, I knew that we needed to bring this community that we built on IG Lives during the pandemic now together. And so we did do our styling awards, which we've done 2 years in a row, which is our big, you know, 2.5-day event. But from that, I thought, you know, there's something else where I don't want to just wait every year to see everybody. I want to see everybody every month. And so we started the Bridal Artist Connection in Chicago, and then we did one in South Carolina. That is a 4-hour event. We bring it to major cities around the country. We have education of hairstyling. We're bringing in the makeup artists into the bridal community because they're a part of that morning. And so we're having makeup education. We're having a expert panel discussion. We, you know, we question the crowd of, you know, what the topics they need to discuss in particular to that location. And so it's, you know, a 4-hour networking event with education and connection. And I like to say I go into the cities and throw a little party.
Okay, so what are some of your upcoming educational events? Where are they?
We're headed to Columbus, Ohio at the end of the month. And then May 12th, we're going into Atlanta, Georgia, where we had our first hair show back in 2022. Wait, 2022, 2023? Yeah. And so Atlanta, we love Atlanta. And then after that, we're headed to Detroit, Michigan, which is also filled with the most amazing, talented stylists, that community there. But we're slated, you know, to add Philadelphia, the Northeast. This is where we get a lot of requests from the Northeast, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, about the need for in-person events. So we ask and listen to where, you know, the need is, and we go in and book an event, and come in and, like I said, you know, have a little party with the local community, of bridal hairstylists and makeup artists. So it's just fun. It's good
Awesome.
to get out there and provide them a space to come together to build their own connections with their local artist around them, and, you know, really kind of push the community over competition and coming together. We're also doing, you know, looking at what's happening with the bridal community and the bridal professional. You see a lot of them going into independent education. So now they have all this knowledge, all this experience, and now they want to share it with up and coming stylists. And so we see the stylists stepping into the role as an educator and a facilitator. And back in my days with Redken, I know that I got a lot of facilitator training and really valuable training on how to speak to a group and how to engage. And we just kind of witnessed that there wasn't that type of training available for all these new up and coming independent educators that you see around the bridal industry. And so I've started working with the great Andrew Carruthers, who is amazing.
Oh, yes.
And
Love
we
Andrew.
are now, isn't he amazing? Like,
He
so
is.
great.
Yes.
Yes, him and I, we've known each other for a while. I invited him to be on stage at our last hair show, which was in Orlando. And I knew that his energy was needed in our community because I've had these great conversations with him, and I knew what a special person he is. And him and I speak the same language about like mindset and energy. And I knew that I wanted to have our community exposed to that type of mindset and self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
because it is such a stressful job. And he obviously, did an amazing job and was so loved and well received that afterwards we spoke and said, let's bring this educator masterclass, let's bring this facilitator, training that he comes with to the bridal community. And I think it'll be an experience of self-discovery for a lot of these educators, and give them tips and tricks to, feel like, how do I overcome, nerves, and how do I build my confidence, and how do I, command the room? And so we did one in Seattle, and it was amazing. It was such a fantastic experience. It's a 2-day masterclass led by Andrew, and, I'm there providing input as well. And so we have another one coming up in Seattle, the end of June, the 23rd and 24th. So again, if you are a educator at all, and you want just to have, this self-awareness experience as well as facilitator training, it's a fantastic experience. And it's really, I'm honored to be a part of this growth of the groups that we have. It's a really special experience. So I just wanted to
love it.
Yeah, it's such a great project that we're working on, and I get to do that with such a special person.
I love it. I love it. It's amazing. Any last hair horror stories that you want to talk about? Specific altercations, specific occurrences that are particularly interesting?
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Give me a humdinger.
A humdinger.
Yeah.
A humdinger.
Yeah, one that when you sit down with your girlfriends, you're like, you'll never believe this one time.
Well, I think I'm kind of, some of my worst horror stories I did share with that one with the extensions, and her and I went back and forwards. And then the other one with the hair that I thought was wet, but it was actually greasy. I mean, it's like, what do I do with this? This is so bad. So bad. I think the ones that are just, you learn from is you do the look and it just doesn't come out the way that you want it. And you really have to just take it down and start all over again. And, you get that, pit in your stomach where you're just like, oh my God. And okay, here I am, and I'm going to overcome this challenge. And so you just kind of have to take a deep breath and say, we're going to get through this, and we're going to make it happen. So, I think every stylist,
you have to be calm, right? So the bride doesn't freak out.
Yes, but you really want to throw up.
I bet. How often does that happen?
I think, I think every bridal stylist ever has that story where you get the finished look and the bride is just not happy, and you literally just have to be like, I have to just start over. And you hope it doesn't happen very often at all, because again, you've got a great consultation. You've already go in this, being the expert and knowing what to look for. But you hope it only happens a couple times in your entire career. And I'll just say that for real. Like,
all right,
everyone's going to have it, but you don't want it to happen too often.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for introducing yourself to our audience and telling us about what you do. I think it's great what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. Like, we're excited. We've done, we've had our big event, the Beyond the Ponytail Styling Awards, which was something that we launched 2 years ago to give the opportunity to have people, submit their looks and get the recognition and come together to really, it's a global event, come together and spend 2.5 days as a community learning from some of, the experts in our industry, and then just celebrating each other. And it's just been fantastic. So we are here to bring community together and provide the connection that the bridal community has desperately been searching for. And so I'm proud to say that they have an opportunity now.
100%. So you're Angela Beyond the Ponytail. And from there, it links to just about everything that we talked about. So I encourage everyone to go check this out.
Yes, we've got everything on beyondtheponytail.com. You have everything to the styling awards that's slated for 2026. You have all of our bridal artist connections that are up there live for ticket sales, and our educator masterclass, which is in June in Seattle. So, and then, I always say I'm available to everybody. So if you have questions, comments, anything at all, you can always go to Angela Beyond The Ponytail, send me a DM, and connect. Like I love the power of conversation. And good things happen from great conversations. So
Absolutely.
please reach out to me, and I would love to, just connect and see where it takes us.
Awesome. Love it. So nice to meet you, Angela. Thanks for the time.
So nice to meet you too, Eric. Thank you for such a fun conversation.